honeybees, my name is Raven. Welcome to my channel.
Subscribe to become part of the hive. Be sure to like and ring the notification bell. Thanks, honeybees. Enjoy the video.
Hey friends, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, Blessed Yule, Kwanzaa, whatever's going on. As you can see, this is a little bit of a different setup for me. I am home for the holidays. I'm at my parents' house right now. It's the middle of the night, just a couple days before Christmas. I'm working on last minute Christmas gifts, but there's something I just really wanted to talk about for the holidays, something that's been on my mind lately as I observe my yearly tradition of watching 25 Christmas movies, one for every day in December up until Christmas. And I do this every year because I love Christmas movies. I do this for Halloween as well. It's just kind of a holiday thing for me. Love movies, Halloween movies, Christmas movies. Yes, I don't really have anything Christmassy on. I'm still in Halloween mode because I love it so much, but I do also love Christmas. And I love talking about Christmas movies. What I did this year was what I do most years, is where I have a good little mix of first time watches, new release Christmas films, mixed in with those yearly staples that I love so much. What I really want to talk about today is some direct to streaming Christmas movies that I've watched recently as part of my mission to watch new Christmas movies in December. And I've noticed a trend that maybe other people have noticed for a lot longer than me, and it's something we're all aware of, that streaming movies aren't always the best. I feel like they used to be, and then now with just the overabundance of streaming services and the need from studios and things like that to like pump out movies every single year or monthly or every couple of months or what so have you on streaming services, so that people want to keep subscribing to these streaming services. I can go on about this forever. My point is, I watched some terrible direct-to-streaming Christmas movies this year, and I really need to talk about them. So it's not just Christmas movies, direct-to-streaming Christmas movies that have gone downhill. It's definitely many streaming movies. I've just been noticing it with Christmas the past couple of years, because last year, this movie came out called Candy Cane Lane, starring Eddie Murphy.
Everybody listen, this is important. I'm gonna show you guys something, and when I show you what I'm gonna show you, don't freak out. I can explain.
And that was probably the first direct-to-streaming Christmas movie, like new direct-to-streaming Christmas movie I watched that I just thought was so terrible, because even like bad streaming movies sometimes I think are good or have something there, or I just simply won't watch them. This is one that I was interested in watching and I watched, and I just did not like it. And Candy Cane Lane was not the first direct-to-streaming Christmas movie I watched that I didn't like. The year before that, I think in 2022, the movie Spirited with Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell came out. But the thing about that is, like, it was an interesting concept. The actors tried. It didn't really seem like they were phoning it in. I mean, Ryan Reynolds always kind of seems like he's phoning it in a little bit, but Will Ferrell, I think, was doing his best, and I did like the concept, and it was a musical, and I kind of liked the songs. Like, it wasn't great, but I enjoyed it. You know, that's kind of like the quality I expect from a direct-to-streaming Christmas movie. It doesn't have to be a unique premise, but they do something interesting with a tired premise, which is what happened in Spirited's case. It's really just a different take on Scrooge and A Christmas Story and things like that, which we've seen a million times, but it's not presented in a way that I'd seen before, so like that was cool, and I'll give it points for that. And everything else was just kind of blah, whatever, forgettable. I haven't thought about that movie since I watched it until now. But I feel like over the past couple years, every year, the movies just get worse and weirder. So Spirited came out in 2022, and then 2023, Candy Cane Lane came out. Candy Cane Lane also has a somewhat interesting premise, also not very new. The premise of Candy Cane Lane, if you haven't seen it, is Eddie Murphy is this dad who enters this house decorating competition every Christmas, and he never wins, even though he like hand makes all his decorations and stuff like that. And of course, he's tired of not winning, so he goes to this like special Christmas store to like get supplies and buys this really big like Christmas decoration, and it's like the tree from the 12 Days of Christmas, and every day the things in that song like come to life and like terrorize him and his family. So there's like 7 swans swimming in the pool, and then there's 6 laying geese, and then there's French hens, so all the birds from the song and everything are like coming to life. which to start off is kind of an interesting premise. Again, not the most unique thing in the world. That song is old. But what would happen if those animals and other things in the song actually like happened? Like who would give these things to these people? That's so funny, such a funny concept. But then it gets all really convoluted and strange because we find out that the shopkeeper that sold the decoration was actually an evil elf who like has all these victims trapped in tiny little dolls that can talk and are talking to Eddie Murphy and his family and trying to help him through the situation. And they have to find 5 golden rings in order to stop her, and they have to find them by Christmas time. And it's this whole convoluted mess, and it was a lot of ideas and none of them were really paying off. It was just a lot, and I don't think any of the concepts were very well thought through. It was just more and more and more. And I always think it's strange when movies just add and don't develop at all, which is a theme for the next 2 movies I'm going to talk about. But in Candy Cane Lane, it just kind of goes off the rails, and it's not that it doesn't make any sense. It's not like a confusing story, it's just convoluted. There's just too much plot. But at the same time, it feels like one of those movies that was made on a conveyor belt, like made in a boardroom. A bunch of people thought, what do people like in movies? What's something Christmassy? What's the famous Christmas concept? Oh, the 12 Days of Christmas. What's like a common joke about that? Like, oh, who would gift all these various birds and items to somebody? That's a lot. But then why is this happening? Where is this coming from? An elf, an evil elf. Why is she evil? What does she want? What else does she do? They need people to help them. What if she traps her victims in tiny little toys? Toys are Christmassy. And it just seems so disingenuous that they're just throwing all these Christmassy things at the wall and hoping that people will like it because it's Christmas and we like watching Christmassy things on Christmas. But it's not just the plot that's the problem. I feel like that plot would have been fine, even as strangely as it was presented, but it's mostly like the dialogue and the acting that really got it for me. Eddie Murphy does not want to be there. He's just phoning it in. He's just reading his lines. There's no character to it. He's just Guy. He's just a dad in a bad way who's trying to do the best for his family, but he's not even really that. Like, I don't even believe that he likes his family. I don't believe that he likes being anywhere at all. He just is so flat, and this was obviously just a paycheck for him. The boardroom was like, who's the biggest star we could get with this direct-to-streaming budget? And they got Eddie Murphy, because what else is he doing right now? And then the actress who plays the evil elf, Jillian Bell, her characterization is ridiculous. She's way over the top, elfy and evil. She has this like weird mannerisms when she speaks that's just way too like charactery. I'm a character style comedic acting, and it contrasts so heavily with Eddie Murphy's don't give a fuck attitude that it's extremely distracting. And also she's not funny at all. The rest of the plot or how anything gets resolved really doesn't matter because the movie is so forgettable. You could watch it right now and not remember tomorrow what happens in it. I watched it a year ago. I haven't watched it since, and I barely remember anything about it other than I did not like it and it was a huge waste of time. So that movie came out in 2023. It only got worse this year in 2024. There were a lot of direct-to-streaming Christmas movies this year. I managed to watch 2 of them, and those 2 movies were so bad, I just gave up on watching new releases this year and only rewatched things I knew that I liked because I did not want to risk another day where I wasted my pick on something terrible and boring. And the first new release Christmas movie I watched this year was Nutcrackers, starring Ben Stiller.
I'm with Family Services. With Christmas in 3 weeks, we have very limited options.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Just look after them until I can find them a foster home.
Hey, dudes. It's your Uncle Michael. Remember me? Your mom's big brother. I'm here now to look after you, get you guys hooked up with a family.
I farted. He farted.
Oh, come on.
A little piece of poop.
This movie has the similar thing going on of like, let's take these basic holiday premises and try to combine them together to make something somewhat unique, even though it's not. It was also probably made in a boardroom. This one might have been made by AI, I don't know. But it was far more boring and unentertaining than I ever could have expected a movie to be. It's not even very Christmassy. The thing about Candy Cane Lane and Dear Santa and Spirited is that they're at least very, very Christmassy in terms of like visuals. And you know, they're bright, they're colorful, there's music, all that stuff. Nutcrackers is just the most boring, dramatic, but not even like good drama, like not even a well-acted drama film. And there's really no hint of Christmas really whatsoever until the very end. And the visuals itself, like the color palette, is very bland. There's nothing interesting to look at on screen at all until maybe the end, and even then it's not that great. And there's just no joy or whimsy in it at all. Now, you can have a Christmas movie that's not a comedy, obviously, that's fine. There's a lot of like dark comedy Christmas movies, Christmas horror movies, dramatic Christmas movies, and I like various different kinds of genres when it comes to Christmas movies. It doesn't all have to be like fun and whimsical in the plot to be fun and whimsical as a Christmas movie. Like even a Christmas drama is gonna have like decorations in it or something. Nutcrackers got nothing, but that is far from my main gripe with it. Nutcrackers is basically about Ben Stiller, who's this like city businessman, and he has to drop everything because his sister and her husband died in a car crash, and they have 4 kids that now he has to go and take care of and find a place to put because he's the next of kin. And these 4 kids just happen to live on this farm in the middle of nowhere, so he has to go from big city to little farm. One of the most basic Hallmark Christmas movie style premises to begin, except usually it would be like a big businesswoman going to a small town, so they flip the script on us by making it a man. You could probably already tell just by me describing the premise what's going to happen in this movie, and you'd probably be exactly correct. It was extremely predictable. From the first scene, I could tell exactly what was going to happen with every single character. Ben Stiller goes to take care of his young nephews. They're completely unruly children who don't want to follow the rules, don't want him there, don't like him there. He doesn't like them. With the help of this social worker woman, he's trying to find homes to put them in, some sort of foster situation, because there's nobody else but him in the family. But then over the course of the film, they get closer and closer and they all start to like each other. There's a little romance going on with the social worker woman, and exactly everything that you think would happen happens. But to be a little more detailed on the plot, I guess, if anyone's interested, if you haven't seen this movie, which I can't imagine many people have, Ben Stiller's sister, the mom of the 4 kids, was a dancer. And I think all her sons, or at least her eldest son, danced as well. And so as part of a ploy to get all the boys adopted and look not like the crazy, unruly boys that they are, Ben Stiller has this idea to put on their own version of the Nutcracker that the boys write, and they dance in it. And the idea is that they do this big Christmas performance and somebody is going to fall in love with the boys and offer to adopt them, and it's going to be a whole thing. And they get a happily ever after. And a lot of like the points throughout this plot don't really make sense. Like obviously there's got to be like ups and downs, like a lot of turmoil in it. It has a pretty basic structure, right? Like we have our initial problem and our characters don't get along, and then they start to get along, but then suddenly there's this big fallout before they come back together in the very end. The way that this movie like portrayed those points in the plot was very lazy and underdeveloped. Another key word for these movies that I'm talking about, completely underdeveloped. And there were some like dramatic moments that were just completely unearned. I don't know why this movie was leaning so much on drama. I don't know if it was trying to be comedic at all. I certainly didn't laugh. It was hard to tell what was supposed to be jokes or if the jokes were supposed to be funny jokes. But it was mostly a lot of drama. It wasn't even written very well, so it was just boring to listen to and boring to watch. Like I said earlier, there was nothing even cool to look at on screen. When the boys were dancing at the end, that was the best part. But that scene was also really weird because the underdeveloped fallout thing that I was talking about, right before the boys are supposed to do their show, they overhear Ben Stiller talking about how he just wants to get rid of them. And so they get upset and rebel by not going on to put the show, which doesn't make any sense because they knew that they were doing this show so that they would get adopted. Like they were aware the whole time that Ben Stiller was never going to watch them and stay with them. And even though at this point they like him more, they knew that the whole point of the show was to get adopted by somebody else. So I'm not sure why they would be that hurt about it. Like, I guess obviously it hurt their feelings, but like, why would they not put on the show? Because then they're just going to go into the foster system and get separated. And they knew that. So they decided to not put on the show, and then everybody leaves the auditorium where they had paid to see the show. And then the boys, I guess, changed their mind and decide to put on the show in the middle of the road outside of the venue where they were going to put it on, literally blocking traffic the whole time, putting on the entirety of their version of the Nutcracker, which must have at least been an hour. And they're dancing in the street, and everyone who paid tickets to watch them at the venue are just watching them in the street. But I wonder, like, why did they do it in the street? If they changed their mind and wanted to do it, why didn't they do it inside of the venue? And then over the course of them dancing, they forgive Ben Stiller for saying he wants to get rid of them, and they all decide to stay together at the end, because I guess just the power of dance. Another big problem is Ben Stiller. Just like with Eddie Murphy in Candy Cane Lane, I couldn't help but feel like he was really phoning it in. He did not give any personality to his character at all. I don't believe that this character would have fallen in love with these boys, or that he would have changed his mind and wanted to obtain guardianship of them in the end. There's this like emotional moment between him and the eldest boy at the very end when he tells them that he's going to stay. And it just, like I mentioned earlier, was completely unearned. And like the first time really any emotion was shown by Ben Stiller's character, like his sister and her husband died, and he gave no emotion about that at all in the beginning of the movie. And then there's this supposed romance that's going on between him and the social worker. And I don't believe he likes her at all. Like, he's not acting like it. She's acting like she's into him. I don't know why. He's a sad sack, and he's frowning the entire movie. And his line delivery is just so tired and basic. He's just reciting the lines. There's no emotion. There's no acting. There's nothing. There's no humor at all. Again, it doesn't have to be a comedy, but you gotta give me something. You have to be an entertaining protagonist for me to want to watch the movie. And the kids were annoying. They were supposed to be annoying, but we were supposed to kind of like them at the end. They were annoying the whole time. Just not as annoying as Ben Stiller's character, who is just a weird, mean guy who I would never want to root for, and therefore he's a bad protagonist. And that's really all I have to say about Nutcrackers. It was also extremely boring. I feel like that goes without being said with everything I described, but it's so boring. Not even made in a boardroom, probably literally like the script was probably like generated. I'm sure I can't imagine somebody wrote this, because there was just no humanity in it. Even in like those boardroom created comedies, there's some hints of humanness in those. There was none in Nutcrackers. They tried, I just didn't believe it at all. So the last movie I want to talk about, and my main reason for making this video, is Dear Santa.
Every Christmas, something magical happens
Dear Santa.
when a kid sends a letter to Santa. But Liam
To Santa.
is a crappy speller.
This looks like fun.
So, Dear Santa, if you don't know, the premise is about this loser little kid. I'm not saying that to be mean, that's what his character is. This loser little kid with one friend, and also has dyslexia, writes a letter to Santa. Because he has dyslexia, he spells it Satan. And the letter ends up getting to Satan, and Satan decides to answer the letter, which is a concept, a joke, whatever, that I've been hearing and reading and seeing for years. So it's nothing new, but I was still interested to see like what they did with the premise, because I've never really thought about it beyond like that joke. Like, what would happen if Satan came to answer the letter? Like, would he just drag that kid to hell? Or how are they going to make a whole movie about this? I guess it's a concept that I would definitely work better as like an SNL sketch or something like that. Like a full-length movie, surely there's not enough material. And I was correct in thinking that, because there wasn't. So first off, like, it's not that it doesn't make sense that the movie is called Dear Santa, because he intended to write to Santa, but it would have made a lot more sense if it had been called Dear Satan, because that's what he actually writes. So that's an odd choice right off the bat in terms of title. Now, what's interesting is there's, I believe, a Filipino movie called Dear Satan that also came out this year in 2024. So I don't know if that's like a coincidence, or if that movie came out first and they decided to change the title. I don't know. Like I said, not a unique premise, but kind of weird that they both came out at the same time. So that's the beginning of the plot. But what happens from there is very, very strange and convoluted. This movie's very weird. plot-wise, character-wise. The main kid is like this self-conscious little nerd whose parents are always fighting and on the verge of divorce. And he's like, again, I don't want to say it to be mean, but his character is just like a little shy loser. He's just this little average, uncool 6th grader who only has one friend. And his parents like know he's a loser. So just an interesting protagonist to start out. I'm not saying we needed like a cool little kid. It makes sense why they made him that way, because the whole point of Satan being there is that he's kind of like answering his letter on trying to make him cool and get with his crush. And, you know, uncool little kids who still write to Santa are probably going to ask for things that make their life better. So Satan answers the letter and tries to do so. But what we don't find out until later, because this movie has a twist, is that Jack Black is not really Satan. He's a demon who's trying to earn his horns. And Ben Stiller is Satan. He's only in it for one scene, but he is actually Satan. And we don't find that out until way late in the movie. But Jack Black is just a regular demon who decides to answer this random little boy's like wishes in exchange for his soul, because I guess like if you're able to get somebody to sign away their soul as a demon, then you get to be like a real demon. Like you have to earn it like an angel's wings. So that was their explanation for the motivation why Satan would answer the letter, even though he's not really Satan. So I don't know how he got the letter. And I don't really understand what Jack Black would like have to gain by like becoming a real demon and getting his demon horns, because he has a lot of power and is able to conjure anything at any moment and make anything happen throughout the entire film. So I don't know how he could have gotten much more powerful than he was, but like whatever, at least he had some motivation. At least they explained why this guy would answer this little kid's letter. The weirdest part of the plot has to do with like what the kid wants and how quote unquote Satan gives it to him. The main one being like he has a crush on this girl. And so Satan like charms her to be really into him so that he can ask her out. And throughout the whole movie, he's talking about wanting to go to this Post Malone concert and wanting to take the girl to the Post Malone concert. And Satan convinces him to invite her to it. And they talk about this Post Malone concert throughout the entirety of the first half of the film. So much so that there was no way that Post Malone was not going to appear in the movie. You can't mention a real person's name so much and not have them in your film. And Post Malone has made cameos in movies before. He was in the Jake Gyllenhaal Roadhouse remake. He was in like one of the first couple scenes as one of the fighters, and then we never saw him again. He was in this like Mark Wahlberg jail movie. I forget what it was called, but he was also like in one of the first scenes and then never seen again. So I expected there to be a Post Malone cameo, because just simply how much they were mentioning his name and showing his picture in this movie. What I didn't expect was that Post Malone was going to be such a big character in the film and be so directly involved with the main character and the plot. As part of Satan trying to make this kid cool, he gets him really good tickets for the Post Malone concert, but also gets him backstage and puts a little spell charm thing on Post Malone to really like the kid and think that the kid is cool. Not just cool, Satan somehow charms Post Malone to think that this kid is like the greatest person he's ever met in his life, which would have been fine if it was just like Post Malone being like, hey kid, like you're cool, come hang out with us. For some reason, Post Malone like worships this kid. When he sees him, he like lights up, he's yelling, oh my god, bro, it's so nice to meet you, dude. Oh my god, I can't believe you're here. You're a legend, bro. To this 11-year-old little chunky nerd. Like, I'm gonna sound so mean describing this kid, but it was so bizarre.
Whoa! It's Post Malone!
Shut up! Liam! Dude! What is up, man? How are you, man?
You know Liam?
Hell yeah, I know Liam. Liam is my inspiration. Liam is my motivation, dude. You're what drives me, man. Thank you so much for what you do. Look, I have to go, but I wanted you to know I am going to kick this show's ass, and I want to dedicate it to you tonight, man. I gotta go, dude, but I love you so much, man. You're a living legend. You're an absolute stud. You're the biggest beast on planet Earth, Liam. You're the biggest rock star in the universe. I love you so much, and I'll see you after the show, man. Let's go!
What's going on here?
And then Post Malone is on stage at the concert and he's like, I want to introduce you all to the greatest man I ever met. The reason I do what I do, the inspiration behind all my music, the reason I'm alive today. This fucking random kid, and it's the main kid from the movie. And then this little nerd boy goes up and dances on stage like awkward little boys would dance. And then he like gets really popular and famous and everyone's like, oh my god, Liam's the coolest kid. His name is Liam. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet. Liam's the coolest person ever. Oh my god. And it's a video of him like dancing like a Fortnite dance on stage at the Post Malone concert. And he tries to moonwalk. He just shuffles his feet and everyone's like, whoa, this is the coolest kid ever. Oh my god. And Post Malone's like, you're my reason for living, dude. It was so like over the top and strange. And if I was at that Post Malone concert and he introduced someone as his inspiration behind everything that he does, his literal reason for living, and it's this random little 11-year-old boy, I would think that was really odd. I would think that was creepy. And I would never want anything to do with Post Malone again because it would just be so utterly, undescribably strange. In a bad way. Like, I know this is supposed to be like a kid's unattainable fantasy, like the kind of fantasies we all had when we were like little kids. I definitely thought when I was 11 years old that I was going to marry Justin Bieber when I got older. So I get that they're just like trying to portray a child's fantasy, but actually seeing it play out was just too weird to watch and enjoy. I was not entertained by it. I don't want to see a little kid's fantasy on screen taken like 100% seriously. And then there was that weird convoluted plot twist about Satan not even being Satan. It just seemed so unnecessary. Like, it would have been fine if his motivation was just that he wanted another soul. Like, maybe that's how Satan gets souls, by granting wishes. Like, I'd believe that. And also throughout it, like, the parents are really concerned about Liam because he sounds crazy saying that Santa is granting all his wishes. He still thinks it's Santa until after he makes the first wish. But he sounds crazy being like, Santa's granting me these wishes and I was on stage at the Post Malone concert. And so they hire a child psychologist played by Keegan-Michael Key, whose talent was completely wasted in this role. He's in like 2 or 3 scenes and he says like a couple of things. Like, why would you hire a comedic actor for this role if he wasn't gonna be comedic? I don't understand. Listen, this movie has one up on Nutcrackers and Candy Cane Lane because at least Jack Black was trying. He was doing his regular Jack Black thing, but at least that's something. At least there was some humor there. He was taking his role seriously, I guess, but he wasn't taking himself too seriously doing it, which I think is the kind of thing you need in a movie like this. Like, I understand what I'm doing is weird and wacky and ridiculous, but like, that's what it's supposed to be, so that's what I'm gonna do. Like, that was fine. Jack Black still managed to be likable as a performer, but that didn't make up for all the other problems in the movie, and I don't think anyone else did nearly as well as him in their roles. Everything was just so weird and came together in just the strangest yet not entertaining. Like, not boring, but not entertaining, which is hard to describe. But it means like there's effort put in and it just didn't work anyway. Like, I wasn't entertained, I didn't enjoy myself, but I couldn't look away because I just had to see where the movie would go next. I guess one point in the positive is that it wasn't predictable. It would have been worse if it was. Like, a little bit, sure, but I had no idea what they were doing with this movie. But at the end of the day, it still felt like a boardroom movie, you know? Like, what is an interesting Christmas concept? Oh, a kid writes to Satan, and Satan is played by some big actor. Let's get Jack Black. What's something else that the kids like these days? Post Malone. Let's get him on the phone. He'll do anything. He did the J-Lo movie. and let's have like an uncool kid star. This movie will be for all the nerds out there who need to project on a protagonist and watch all their fantasies through him and live vicariously through this character. So we need to hire a kid that looks like a nerd. Maybe he's a little chubby. His character is shy. He's got only one friend, and that friend is also a little bit ugly and weird, which is part of his character. His best friend has like these really big teeth that he's very self-conscious about, and Liam uses one of his wishes to get his friend's teeth fixed, and then he like has all this confidence. But then he's like mad that Liam used his wish to fix his teeth, even though he really wanted to fix his teeth. I don't know, that's just another little weird detail. This movie's full of little weird details. Oh, but another really crazy thing is how it ends. So I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but our main kid, Liam, had a brother that had died like a couple years prior. And that's like kind of what launched his parents not getting along because they weren't handling it well. When it's revealed that Satan isn't actually Satan, the real Satan chastises him because he didn't even like do the wish thing correctly. He granted a couple unselfish wishes, which is not how you get a soul, I guess. Like the person has to wish for like something selfish like fame, money, whatever. And Liam didn't do that. He like wished for his friend's teeth to get fixed, and he wished for a girl to give him a chance. Liam's last wish originally was to get his parents to make up, but they ended up doing that on their own. So his third wish ended up not getting granted. And the whole deal with Jack Black is often he gets to keep his soul, because the whole thing with the real Satan, whatever, doesn't matter. But Jack Black still decides to grant him one third wish because he's come to like Liam. I don't know why. He's not a likable character. The kid, he's a kid, so I'm not gonna be too harsh on his acting, but it wasn't great, and I didn't like him as a character. That's not his fault. He's playing not the most likable character. But anyway, Jack Black grants him one more wish, which he took from his original letter, which he had wished for his brother to come back to life. So at the end of the movie, Liam wakes up on Christmas, and his brother had come back to life, which negates so much of the development in that movie. Like his parents like fighting and then realizing that like it wasn't either of their faults that their son had passed, and finally like getting through that trauma together and coming out good on the other side. Completely erased. None of that mattered at all now that the kid is brought back to life. Like, and they forgot that they ever went through that. Liam's like acceptance of that as well, completely negated. He doesn't have to accept that his brother is gone because he's not gone anymore, and we really didn't learn anything. They just had to have a happy ending, and Liam getting his friends back and not having to sell his soul and his parents are back together, I guess wasn't enough for a good Christmassy ending. We also had to bring back his dead brother. So that was also very weird, and I didn't like it. Not the worst direct-to-streaming Christmas movie I've seen, definitely not the worst one this year, but definitely the most notable in a negative sense, just because of how like confused and angry and weirded out I was the entire time I was watching it. I wouldn't recommend any of these movies. If anything I said sounded interesting, it's really not. I guess if I was to recommend any of them, it would be Dear Santa, just so you could see what I'm talking about, but I don't recommend it in a positive light. Really, all of them are a waste of time. Don't watch any of it. Go watch a good Christmas movie. Candy Cane Lane and Nutcracker get a half star from me. Dear Santa gets 1 star. So, and that's all I want to talk about for this video. I hope you're all having a wonderful holiday. But for now, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for watching, honeybees. Make sure to like and subscribe. Bye.
Meow.